The day has let go of you. Maybe it released you with the soft click of a laptop closing. Maybe it eased its hands off your shoulders when you stepped out of the last meeting, the last errand, the last small demand that asked you to be sharp and fast and certain. However it happened, you are here now, at the edge of evening, where the world grows quieter. Let your jaw unclench. Let your tongue rest. Let the weight of your arms sink into whatever is holding you. And if it helps, take one slow breath in and a longer breath out, as though you were gently fogging a window and watching the fog disappear. Outside, night arrives the way a calm ocean arrives at shore. Not all at once, not with drama, just a gradual darkening, a lowering of the lights, a softening of edges. Street sounds thin out. A neighbor's porch light glows like a small candle. Somewhere far away, a train sighs once and then becomes part of the distance. Above all of it, the sky begins to open. At first, it is only a deeper blue, like velvet turned toward a shadow. Then, slowly, the first stars appear, quiet points, steady and patient. You don't have to name them. You don't have to count them. You only have to let them be there, like gentle company that doesn't ask questions. And maybe you felt this before. That moment when you look up and something in you loosens, as if the sky is a wide hand laid softly over the busy parts of your mind. When was the last time you looked up at the night sky and felt at peace? If you can't remember, that's all right. Tonight can be enough. Tonight can be the beginning of remembering. Before we drift deeper into tonight's gentle journey, remember to subscribe to Sleepy Insight channel. Here, you'll always find peaceful stories that soothe the heart and quiet the mind. Where are you listening from tonight? Leave a comment. Your presence adds warmth to this quiet corner of the night. Now, let's return to the sky. There is a particular kind of wonder that visits the night only briefly, so brief that your mind might doubt it happened at all. A thin streak of light, a quick, delicate line drawn across the darkness, like a pencil stroke made by a hand you never see. It appears, it glides, it fades, and in that tiny moment, people often make a wish. Not to change the universe, only to soften the heart. Something better, something softer. Yet behind that small, private ritual is a story that is far older than our calendars, far larger than our cities, and far calmer than the phrase falling star suggests. Because a shooting star is not a star at all. It is not a sun being born or dying. It is not a distant world collapsing. It is something much smaller, often smaller than a grain of sand, moving through space so silently you could never hear it, so cold you could never feel it, so dark you could never see it, until it meets us, until it brushes the thin edge of our air. And then, suddenly, the sky seems to breathe light. If you imagine the Earth as a living home, then the atmosphere is its softest boundary, its blanket, a layer of gas wrapped around the planet, not hard like armor, but steady like a familiar quilt. It's the thing that turns harsh sunlight into warmth instead of burn, the thing that carries clouds and weather and the scent of rain. It is also the thing that protects you, quietly, every single night. Because the universe is not empty. Even in the spaces between planets, tiny fragments drift, dust released from comets, chips of stone from ancient collisions, specks left over from the early days when the solar system was still assembling itself. Most of the time, these fragments wander without notice. They do not glow. They do not announce themselves. They simply travel. But Earth is traveling too. We move through space the way a ship moves through a dark sea. always forward, always sweeping through what is already there. And so, now and then, our paths cross. A tiny visitor meeting the edge of our world. The moment it touches the upper atmosphere, something extraordinary happens, and it happens very quickly. Not because the visitor is burning like wood in a campfire, but because it is moving so fast that the air in front of it compresses sharply, like a soft cushion suddenly pressed by a rushing hand. That compression heats the air, and the air begins to glow. The light you see is, in many cases, not the rock shining, but the atmosphere responding. It is Earth's blanket, briefly lit from within. And the visitor itself, so small, so old, begins to erode, shedding layers into vapor and dust. It doesn't explode in anger. It dissolves. It gives itself back to the air in a way that feels almost like surrender, a sweet dissolving, like sugar in warm tea. You can feel how this is already a story meant for sleep. A story of motion becoming softness, a story of the universe touching us and being gentled by the very air that keeps you safe. Some shooting stars are so faint you would miss them if you blinked. Others flash bright enough to make you look up sharply, as though the sky just whispered your name. But whether they are subtle or brilliant, they share this quiet truth. The night is not still. It only appears still. Above the roofs and treetops and distant highways, the upper air is alive with tiny encounters, most of them invisible, most of them happening whether anyone is watching or not. This is the first soft twist of tonight. The universe does not wait for your attention. It continues, gently, without you. And that can be strangely comforting, because it means you are allowed to rest. The sky will keep its rhythm. The earth will keep turning. The stars will remain where they are. And in the rare moments when a line of light appears, it is not a warning. It is not danger. It is proof that the atmosphere is doing its work, transforming what could have been a collision into a brief, harmless glow. A light show as a sign of safety. If you're listening in bed, you might notice the way your breathing naturally slows when you accept that. The way your shoulders sink a little deeper into the pillow. The way your eyes feel heavier, as though they are learning to trust the dark. And now, let's widen the scene. Imagine a quiet place, somewhere the night sky feels close. Maybe it's a small town road with fields on either side, and the horizon is low and open. Maybe it's a beach, where the ocean is a black mirror and the stars seem to hover just above the water. Or maybe it's simply your own backyard, with a single tree silhouette and a patch of sky framed by rooftops. In that place, the air is cool and the world is dim. You can hear soft, ordinary sounds, a wind chime barely moving, the distant hush of traffic, the whisper of leaves. Nothing urgent, nothing demanding, and above, the sky keeps offering its gentle invitations. One star, then another, then a slow spill of constellations, as though the darkness is being embroidered by invisible hands. A few years ago, I found myself in a place like that, far from the city, where the stars were allowed to be themselves. There was an old lookout on a hill, half observatory and half porch, with a wooden bench that creaked when you sat down. Someone had left a tin box there, tucked under the bench, as if the night itself had been keeping a secret. Inside were simple things: a pencil, a red flashlight, and a folded star chart, worn smooth at the creases. On the back of the chart, in careful handwriting, were a few lines, dates, times, and small notes like "thin trail, lingered, and bright, then quiet," and landed somewhere beyond the cottonwood. It didn't feel like instructions. It felt like a lullaby written for the sky. And as I sat there, listening to the wind move through the grass I realized something tender. People have always looked up this way, not to conquer the night, but to feel less alone inside it, to let the vastness take weight off the heart, the way an ocean can make worries seem smaller. Somewhere in that wide tapestry, a speck of space dust is approaching. It has no intention, no plan. It is simply following a path shaped by gravity, by the steady pull of the sun, the subtle tug of planets, the long memory of orbits. It has been traveling for a time that is difficult to hold in the mind. Not hours, not days, not even centuries. It has been traveling through a solar system that is billions of years old, carrying in its minerals a quiet record of origins, of heat and cold, of formation and fracture, of darkness and light. And now, it is about to touch the air above your world, just for a heartbeat, just long enough to become visible. If you have ever felt that your own life moves too fast, too many notifications, too many tasks, too many voices, then there is a gentle lesson in this tiny visitor. It reminds you that speed is not always loud, that something can move unimaginably fast and still be silent, and that something can carry an ancient story and still arrive as nothing more than a thin line of light. In a moment, in the next part of our journey, we'll follow what happens after that first bright streak, how a meteor's light can linger as a faint twisting trail, and how, sometimes, after the glow is gone, a small piece continues falling in darkness, on a hidden path called dark flight. But for now, you don't need to chase the next detail. You only need to feel the night around you. Feel how the sky is large enough to hold your thoughts without crowding them. Feel how your body, right now, is allowed to be still. And if a shooting star passes above your roof tonight, whether you see it or not, let it be a quiet reassurance. You are part of a universe that knows how to turn motion into softness. You are safe beneath the blanket of air, and you can rest. If you are still awake, just a little, you can picture it now. High above the roofs and trees, far above the birds and the weather, there is a thin region where the world begins to fade into space. The air up there is so light, it feels almost like an idea. It is not the air you breathe, thick with scent and warmth. It is a delicate veil, stretched wide around the planet, cool and sparse and endlessly patient. And yet, that veil is powerful. It is the reason you can lie here tonight without fear of the sky, because out in the dark, things are always moving, not with intention, not with malice, just with the quiet inevitability of orbit and gravity. Tiny fragments, older than any city, drift through the solar system the way pollen drifts through a sunbeam. They come from places you cannot see, a comet's long dissolving trail, the distant scars of an ancient collision, the leftover grit of an early, unfinished world. Most of the time, they pass by unnoticed. Space is large enough to hide almost everything. But every now and then, Earth gently meets one of these travelers. And the meeting is so brief, so graceful, that we mistake it for a wish. Imagine a single speck approaching the edge of our atmosphere. At first, it is only darkness moving through darkness. It does not glow. There is no sound. There is no heat. In the cold of space, it is simply a piece of matter, quiet and indifferent, carried along like a leaf on a river you cannot see. Then it arrives at the upper air, and the air answers. The speck is moving very fast, and the gas in front of it compresses, tightens, warms, and begins to shine. The sky lights up along the path, not like a torch, but like a soft line drawn with a bright fingertip. For a second, the night has a seam of silver. For a second, The darkness remembers how to glow. This is the kind of beauty that doesn't insist on being understood. It simply appears, and then it is gone. If you have ever watched a shooting star, you might remember how the moment feels longer than it is. Your mind stretches it. Your breath pauses. The rest of the world seems to hush, as if the night itself leaned closer to watch. But the world around you remains calm. That is another gentle truth. The sky can be dramatic, and the ground can stay quiet. Even a bright meteor can streak overhead without shaking a single branch. If there is any sound at all, it may arrive later, faint and delayed, like an echo that never quite decides to be real. Often, there is no sound, just light. And then the night returns to itself. And that return is part of the lullaby. Because after the bright moment, something softer can follow. Sometimes, after a meteor flashes, a faint trail remains in the upper air, like a pale ribbon, barely visible, slowly twisting and thinning. It is not the rock itself anymore, but a delicate trace of disturbed atmosphere, tiny particles and ionized air beginning to settle, beginning to drift with high winds you cannot feel from the ground. It can linger for seconds, sometimes for minutes. A quiet afterimage. The sky breathing out. If you've never seen this, that's okay. It exists whether you witness it or not, and there is comfort in knowing that the universe does not demand your attention to be beautiful. It simply continues, softly. Now, let's step closer to the traveler itself. Not every meteoroid becomes only light. Some are so small they vanish completely, giving everything they are to the air. Others are larger, denser, stubborn in the gentlest way. They lose mass as they pass through the bright phase, shedding layers into vapor, peeling away like thin paper in wind. But a portion may survive, cooling rapidly once the main glow fades. And then, something almost tender happens. The rest of the fall becomes quiet. This part is sometimes called dark flight, and the name sounds mysterious, but it is simply a descent without light. The fragment is no longer moving fast enough to make the air glow. It has slowed. It is cooling. It is falling through darkness, guided by gravity, the way a feather is guided, only heavier, steadier, more certain. You might think a falling stone would be violent, but from the perspective of the night, it can be surprisingly gentle. It may drift down through a colder layer, through a slow wind, through a high silence. It may land in snow without leaving more than a small dimple. It may sink into soft soil. It may rest on a quiet beach, where the tide later comes and covers it with sand. And when it rests, it is not necessarily hot. The heat of the bright streak was mostly in the air around it. The surface of a surviving fragment can form a thin, dark crust, like something lightly toasted, while the inside may remain cool, even cold, holding on to its older temperature, its older story. A stone with a night-burned skin, a quiet heart. There is something soothing about that contrast. A brief blaze, and then calm. A bright line, and then a soft landing. A moment that looks like fire, and a result that can be held like a simple rock, because it mirrors the way many of us live. We flare, we rush, we carry heat in our thoughts and our schedules, and then we come home. We set things down, we become quiet again. If you want, take a slow breath in now, and let it out a little longer than before. Picture your own worries doing what meteors do, losing their sharp edges as they pass through the soft blanket of the night, dissolving into smaller pieces, becoming lighter. And while you breathe, consider this. The meteoroid did not come from far away in the way we often mean it. It came from the same family of material that built our planet, our moon, our oceans, our bones. In the earliest days of the solar system, dust circled the young sun, and over time, that dust gathered into larger bodies. Some became planets. Some became moons. Some remained as fragments, stored in asteroid belts, or scattered by gravity into long, looping paths. A shooting star is not a stranger. It is a relative, a small cousin returning after a long, silent trip. That thought can soften something deep in the chest, because loneliness often feels like being cut off from the world, floating in your own private space. But the sky tells a different story. It tells you that everything belongs to an ongoing circulation, a quiet exchange, a gentle return. Even space dust eventually touches Earth. Even ancient stone is welcomed into air. Even a brief streak of light ends in rest. And the resting doesn't always end there. Sometimes, tiny fragments become part of the planet in ways you would never notice. Microscopic dust settles on rooftops. It sinks into soil. It drifts into rivers and oceans. It becomes part of the slow, ordinary world. A grain in a field, a trace in a wave, a whisper in the sediment at the bottom of a lake. The universe does not only visit in spectacular flashes, it also arrives as something almost invisible. This is another soft discovery. Cosmic dust is falling on Earth every day, not as drama, as a gentle, steady snowfall you cannot feel. It is as if the night is always sprinkling a little stardust into the world, not to change it suddenly, but to remind it quietly of where it came from. If you're listening from a busy life, emails, schedules, responsibilities, this can be a comfort. It suggests that the largest things in existence are not always loud, that the cosmos can touch your world without disrupting your peace, that the story of stars can settle into your home as softly as dust. Maybe you can imagine it in a more personal way. Picture a quiet windowsill in the morning, the kind that catches a thin line of light. You wipe it clean, and by evening, a faint dust returns, delicate and unavoidable. Most of that dust is from this world: cloth fibers, soil, the soft shedding of daily life. But mixed into the ordinary is a smaller story, a trace that once drifted between planets, then slipped into our air so gently that no one noticed. Or picture the ocean at night, the surface moving in slow, dark breaths. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of city lights, a speck of stardust settles onto a wave and disappears into the water, becoming part of the same sea that cools your skin on summer nights and steadies your thoughts when you stand at the shore. Nothing needs to happen quickly. The universe is patient, and so are you. If your mind is still busy, let it follow just one simple image. A tiny grain, traveling for ages, arriving without harm, dissolving into the atmosphere, and then resting quietly inside the world you already call home. And if you can, let that image loosen one small knot in your chest tonight. And sometimes, long after a meteor has burned and vanished, the sky keeps a hint of it. There are rare, luminous clouds that glow when the ground is already dark, delicate, silvery veils high in the atmosphere, so faint they look like the memory of daylight. They are called noctilucent clouds, and they can form around tiny particles, including dust that arrives from space. So imagine that. A streak of light disappears in a heartbeat, and days later, the sky may carry a pale, glowing lace, as if the meteor left behind a whisper that learned to float. A brief event becoming a slow, beautiful aftermath. A small moment becoming a lingering calm. And that is where our journey will go next. because there is one more secret inside these travelers. Something even older than their orbits. Something that can make the mind feel both tiny and comforted at the same time. Some meteorites carry grains that formed before the sun did. Little pieces of stardust, older than Earth, older than the oceans, older than the idea of night on this planet. In the next part, we will follow that thought gently, like a lantern carried down a quiet hallway. We'll step into deep time without rushing, and we'll see how a speck of dust can hold the memory of other stars, while you, here in your bed, can simply listen and let your thoughts grow soft. The night has a way of making time feel softer. In daylight, time can seem like a hard surface. Hours click into place like tiles. Appointments sit on the calendar like stones. Even rest can feel scheduled. But at night, especially when you let the room go dim, time becomes more like water. It stretches, it smooths, it holds you without asking you to hurry. And so tonight, we can step into a kind of time that isn't measured by clocks at all. We can step into deep time. Not the deep time that feels frightening or overwhelming, but the deep time that feels like a warm ocean, vast, steady, and strangely comforting, because it means the universe has been practicing calm for a very long time. Somewhere in that calm, long before there were cities, long before there were oceans with names, long before there was a moon to pull the tides, the solar system was still taking shape. It began as a cloud of gas and dust, spread thin through space, cold, quiet, dim, a nursery without walls. The atoms in that cloud were not new. They were the leftovers of older stars, stars that had lived their lives and then scattered their material into the dark. In that sense, even before our sun existed, there was already a kind of inheritance drifting in silence. Over time, gravity gathered this cloud inward. The center grew denser, warmer, brighter, until, at last, the sun ignited an ordinary miracle, a steady fire that would last for billions of years. Around it, the remaining dust circled like a slow, shimmering halo. Particles bumped gently, stuck, built larger clumps. Over and over, the clumps became rocks. The rocks became boulders, and the boulders became worlds. Some worlds grew into planets, others became moons. Many remained as fragments, tucked into belts and swarms, traveling in quiet loops, patient and unbothered by human time. This is the family your shooting star belongs to. It is not an intruder. It is a leftover, a small piece of the same early construction site, still carrying the texture of those first days. And sometimes, hidden inside a meteorite, there is something even older, a tiny grain that formed before the sun itself. Scientists call them pre-solar grains, but you don't have to hold on to the term. You can think of them as stardust with a longer memory, a speck that once condensed in the winds of another star, far away and long gone, before our solar system became a place with planets and nights and people. Imagine that for a moment, gently, a grain of dust drifting through space when there was no Earth to receive it, no blue oceans, no trees, no warm houses, no one to look up and wonder, just darkness and distant starlight and the quiet motion of particles between worlds. Then, over ages, that grain became part of the cloud that formed our Sunday. It was folded into the same spinning cradle of dust. It survived collisions, heat, pressure, the slow building of larger bodies. It was sheltered inside rock, protected like a tiny seed inside a shell. And now, after all that time, it might rest on Earth, not as a dramatic treasure, but as a humble detail, something you would never notice unless you knew it was there. This is a soft kind of awe, not the kind that makes your heart race, but the kind that makes your thoughts become quiet. Because the scale is too gentle to argue with, your mind can simply float in it. If you ever feel that your life is too small, or too ordinary, or too heavy, with the same days repeating, remember this: your world is built from ancient stories. Your breath is made of atoms that have traveled through stars. Your body is not separate from the cosmos. It is the cosmos, arranged into a temporary, tender shape. And the shooting star you watch is not just a spectacle. It is a reminder that time is not only something that happens to you, time is something you are part of. If you like, imagine those atoms as tiny travelers too, each one carrying a passport stamped by ancient fires. They have wandered, they have waited, and they have arrived in you, quietly, as though the universe chose kindness over noise. Now, return with me to the quiet hill, the old lookout, the creaking bench, the worn star chart in the tin box. There is a particular kind of person who keeps notes like that, someone who is not chasing excitement, but collecting calm. Someone who sees a meteor trail and thinks, not, I must capture this, but I want to remember how it felt. On the back of that chart, among the dates and short lines, there was one note that stayed with me. It wasn't scientific, it wasn't technical, it was simply, light arrives, then the night is kinder. At first, I didn't understand what that meant. How could a brief streak of light change anything? But the longer I sat there, the more I realized the note wasn't about the sky at all. It was about the nervous system. It was about the way your body relaxes when it trusts the darkness. A shooting star can feel like a small signal, proof that something beautiful can happen quickly and still be safe. Proof that surprise doesn't have to be threatening. Proof that the universe can touch the atmosphere and leave it intact, and leave you intact, and then return to quiet again. And once your body learns that, the night does become kinder. The mind stops scanning for danger. It begins to drift. So let's drift a little further, deeper, into the story that meteors carry. When a meteorite lands, it is like a letter arriving very late. A letter written in minerals, in patterns, in textures. Sometimes meteorites carry tiny beads called chondrules, little spheres of once molten rock that cooled in the early solar system, like droplets frozen in time. Sometimes they carry metallic patterns, slow-grown structures that hint at long cooling inside ancient parent bodies. But tonight, we won't turn this into a laboratory. We will keep it as an image. A stone, that is, in some ways, a library. A library you do not read with eyes, but with imagination. Picture the inside of a meteorite as a quiet archive. Not shelves of books, but grains and crystals, layered like pages. Each layer a small record: heat, cold, impact, rest. An ancient diary written without words. And somewhere, perhaps, in that archive, a pre-solar grain, an older voice, still keeping its own secret. It is a comforting thought that the oldest things can be so small, that the universe chooses to hide its deepest memories inside specks. Maybe that's why, as humans, we keep our own important memories in small objects too. A photograph tucked in a drawer, a pressed flower in a book, a ring on a finger, a note folded into a wallet. Tiny anchors that hold whole histories. The cosmos does something similar. It folds its history into dust. It lets time become portable. And then it lets that time fall, gently, into our air. If you're still awake enough to imagine, Picture a snowfield under moonlight. The surface is smooth, almost blue, with faint shadows. The world is silent. Somewhere, a small meteorite lands with a soft, nearly imperceptible sound, as quiet as a pine cone dropping in distant woods. It makes a tiny crater. It rests, it cools, it becomes part of the night. No one sees it, and yet its presence changes nothing and everything at once. Nothing, because the snow will still fall, the seasons will still turn, the earth will still spin. Everything. Because in that snow now lies a piece of time older than the Sunday. And if you ever held it, if you ever knew it was there, you might feel your own worries loosen, because how could they not, in the face of such long calm? This is not to dismiss your life. Your feelings matter. Your tiredness matters. Your stress matters. But the sky offers perspective, and perspective can be a gentle medicine. It says, you are allowed to be human. You are allowed to have small days. You are allowed to rest, because the universe has been resting in its own way for ages. Even its motion is rhythmic. Even its changes are slow most of the time. And when something moves fast, like a meteoroid, the atmosphere turns it into light, and then into dust, and then into quiet again. It returns it to the long pace, just like your body, when it finally lets go, returns to the long pace of sleep. Now, there is one more image to offer, one that can carry you deeper into calm. Think of noctilucent clouds, again those pale, glowing veils high in the atmosphere. They appear after sunset when the ground is dark, but the upper air still catches a trace of sunlight. They look like delicate ripples of silver, like the ocean's surface lifted into the sky. They are rare, and they are quiet. And they are made, in part, by tiny particles that help water vapor gather and freeze in that high cold. Some of those particles can be dust from space. So, in a way, a shooting star can become a cloud. A quick streak can become a lingering glow. A brief visitor can become part of a gentle, patient pattern. This is the kind of transformation the night understands. And if your mind is holding on to something, an unfinished worry, an old regret, a tired thought, perhaps you can borrow the night's method. Let it enter your awareness, like a small speck. Let the air of your attention warm it, soften it, dissolve it. Let it become a faint trail. Let the trail drift and thin. Let it become part of the background, and then let it settle. You don't have to solve everything tonight. You only have to drift. In the next part, we'll follow the path of these tiny travelers as they arrive in great, gentle showers, nights when the sky offers not one streak, but many, like a slow rain of light. We'll visit the old names humans have given these showers, and we'll keep the science soft, the images warm, and the night wide enough for you to rest inside it. For now, stay with the feeling of deep time, a grain older than the Sunday, a reminder that the biggest stories can live inside the smallest things, and that you, here beneath the blanket of air, are part of a universe that knows how to be quiet. There are nights when the sky feels especially generous, not loud, not busy, just generous. The way a quiet friend is generous when they sit with you without asking anything. The darkness seems deeper, the air feels clearer, and the stars hold their places like steady lanterns. On nights like that, even if your day was full of noise, the sky can make you feel as if you have stepped into a calmer room. And sometimes, on nights like that, the sky offers more than one brief streak. It offers a gentle shower, not a shower you can hear, and not a shower that soaks you, but a shower of light, thin lines appearing here and there, each one lasting only a heartbeat. They arrive with long pauses between them, enough time for your breath to soften again, enough time for your mind to stay slow. If you have ever watched a meteor shower, you might remember how different it feels from a single shooting star. One shooting star can be startling in a lovely way. It can make you sit up, or gasp softly, or blink as if you dreamed it. But a meteor shower invites something else. It invites patience. It invites trust. It invites that quiet state where you are not chasing the moment. You are simply receiving it. You look up and you wait. And while you wait, you begin to notice the night more deeply. The way the sky is not a flat ceiling, but a deep space. The way some stars flicker and others remain steady. The way your own thoughts drift like slow clouds, and your body feels heavier in the best way. A meteor shower happens because Earth, in its steady orbit, passes through a stream of debris left behind by a comet or, sometimes, by an asteroid. Think of it like a faint trail in space, a long ribbon of dust and small fragments spread out along an orbital path. The comet shed that dust over many visits around the sun, like a traveler leaving tiny footprints on a road. Except the road is made of darkness and time. Then Earth arrives. Not with a crash, not with drama, just with its ordinary motion. And the tiny pieces meet our air, one after another, becoming brief lines of light. If the idea of debris sounds harsh, you can soften it. Imagine a comet as a quiet wanderer that over time releases a fine, glittering mist, not as a mess, but as a gift, a slow snowfall in space. And once a year, sometimes, our planet moves through that snowfall and turns it into a soft display. For people who live busy lives, this is a tender lesson. The most beautiful things are often scheduled by the universe, not by us. They return not because we control them, but because the solar system has a rhythm. It keeps its promises quietly, again and again, softly. If you want, picture the Earth as a sleepy ship sailing through a dark ocean. The meteor stream is a region where the water holds more drifting sparkles, tiny flecks that catch a faint light. As the ship passes through, those sparkles brush the hull, and each brush makes a small glow. No harm, no drama, just contact and light, and then the ship keeps moving. Human beings have watched these showers for a long time. Long before modern cities washed the sky with electric brightness, the night belonged to everyone. People watched the stars the way we watch weather. They noticed patterns. They remembered seasons. They told stories, not to prove anything, but to feel the world held together. You can imagine a distant field, centuries ago, with someone lying on their back, watching the sky. There are no streetlights, no screens, no clocks glowing. The world is mostly dark, except for a fire somewhere behind them, and the slow shimmer of the Milky Way above. They see streaks of light and wonder what they mean. Maybe they think of messages. Maybe they think of spirits. Maybe they simply think, in a quiet way, something is moving. And that thought alone can be comforting. Because sometimes our anxiety comes from feeling stuck, as if life is a closed room. The sky reminds you that nothing is truly stuck. Everything is in motion, even if the motion is gentle, even if it is slow. Today, we understand these streaks differently, but the feeling can remain the same. We can know that the light comes from air heating and glowing, and still let the moment feel like a soft blessing. We can know the physics and still make a wish that has nothing to do with changing the universe and everything to do with changing our own breath. When was the last time you let yourself wait for something beautiful without multitasking? Even that question can slow you down, because waiting, in our world, often feels like wasted time. But in the language of meteor showers, waiting is the whole point. Waiting is the practice. Waiting is the doorway into calm. If your mind is still restless, you can give it a simple job: to watch the imagined sky, to notice the long, dark spaces between the streaks, to feel how the pauses are just as important as the flashes. A meteor shower is mostly darkness, mostly quiet, mostly stillness. And then, once in a while, a line of light. That ratio alone is a lullaby. For many of us, the hardest part is simply finding a dark enough patch of sky. Cities glow, highways hum, and windows shine with late-night work. If you live in that brightness, you can still join the shower in a gentler way. Step outside for one quiet minute and look up between buildings. Or dim a lamp and let your room soften. You can even imagine the sky above the clouds, still doing its patient work. Imagination is a doorway your body understands. It can slow the heartbeat and loosen the shoulders. It can remind you that the universe is still wide, even when your world feels small. You are allowed to rest inside it. There are names for certain showers, human names, given the way we name winds and storms and flowers. You may have heard of the Perseids, a summer shower, or the Geminids, a winter one. But you don't need to remember the names tonight. Names are for daytime. Tonight is for the feeling. Still, it can be soothing to know that these events return, that there are nights each year when the sky is more likely to offer these tiny surprises. It means the universe has anniversaries too. It means there is a kind of quiet holiday written into the orbit of Earth. And even if you miss it, even if clouds cover the sky, the holiday still happens above the clouds, and that can be comforting as well. Beauty does not require your presence. It simply continues, waiting for you to notice when you can. Now imagine yourself somewhere under that shower. Maybe you're on a porch with a blanket, the air cool against your cheeks. Maybe you're near the ocean, where the horizon is a dark line and the water whispers in a steady rhythm. Maybe you're in a rural place, where the smell of grass and soil feels more real than any calendar. You look up, you see one streak, and it fades. You breathe out, you wait. Another streak appears, and it fades. The waiting begins to feel like floating. Your thoughts stop grabbing. Your body stops bracing. Your eyes grow soft, not hunting, just resting in the direction of the stars. And then something subtle happens. You begin to sense time differently. A meteor is a brief event, but it is also the end of a long journey. Each streak is a traveler completing a path. The light is the final sentence of a story that began in deep space. And when you watch a shower, you are watching many endings at once, many stories finishing gently, without pain, without struggle. It is like watching leaves fall in autumn. Each leaf drifts down from a tree that has been holding it all year. The fall is brief, but the season behind it is long. And when the leaf lands, the branch remains, the tree remains, the world remains. That is what the atmosphere does. It receives the fragments, it turns their speed into light, and it leaves the night intact. If you have been holding yourself too tightly, you can borrow that method. Let speed become glow. Let glow become rest. Let rest become sleep. And as you imagine this, notice how your body responds. Perhaps your forehead smooths. Perhaps your hands unclench. Perhaps your breathing becomes deeper without effort. The story is doing what it is meant to do, guiding you from the busy world into a slower one. There is another soft discovery. hiding in meteor showers. Some of the streaks you see in a shower can be caused by particles so small you could never hold them between your fingers, smaller than a grain of sand, and yet they can draw a line across the sky that feels enormous. This is a quiet kind of miracle. It reminds you that significance is not always about size. A tiny thing can make a long, beautiful mark. A small kindness can change the mood of a whole evening. A gentle word can soften an entire day. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. Maybe you remember lying in a yard as a teenager, looking up with friends, laughing softly, not knowing you were already practicing peace. Maybe you remember a camping trip, or a night drive, or a moment when the sky felt like a friend. Here, no one rests alone. Every story is a soft lantern in the dark. And now, as we near the end of this part, let the meteor shower fade back into its natural state. Mostly darkness, mostly quiet, mostly stillness. Let the last imagined streak dissolve, and let the night return to being a wide, calm field. In the next part, we'll step gently down from the sky to the ground. We'll follow what happens when a fragment survives the bright moment and rests on Earth. And we'll explore the tender human instinct to search for these quiet stones, not out of greed, but out of wonder, as if holding one could help us remember how vast and gentle time can be. For now, you can simply rest beneath the rhythm, a slow orbit, a soft rain of light, a safe, patient sky. After the sky has finished its brief handwriting of light, the story does not disappear, it simply changes pace. Up high, the meteor's bright passage was fast, a single breath of brilliance, and then it was gone. But below that brightness, in the quieter layers of air, a small fragment can continue, cooling as it falls, drifting through darkness with a steadiness that feels almost sleepy. This is the part that many people never think about, because our eyes are trained to love the flash. We are drawn to the moment that looks like magic, yet the aftermath is often the gentlest chapter. A stone arriving without ceremony, finding a place to rest on Earth, and becoming still. If you imagine it, you might picture a field at night, a wide stretch of grass, silvered by moonlight. The air is cool and clean. Far away, a dog barks once and then returns to silence. A small wind moves across the blades of grass, like fingers smoothing a blanket. Somewhere above that field, the fragment is falling, not glowing now, just descending. It may wobble as air pushes against it. It may turn slowly, like a seed falling from a tree. It may drift sideways with a high wind you cannot feel. And then, at last, it meets the ground. It might land in soft soil, making a small, round dent. It might land in snow, leaving a tiny crater with a dark center. It might land on a quiet beach, and the tide might come later and bury it. However it happens, the ending is simple. Contact, then rest. There is something almost comforting about a cosmic story ending in such an ordinary way. A traveler from deep time becomes just another small object in the world. It does not announce itself. It does not demand to be recognized. It lies there, silent, like a secret the Earth is allowed to keep. And yet, human beings have always been curious about these quiet stones. Not only because they are rare, but because they feel like messages. Not messages in words, but messages in existence. A reminder that the world is connected to something larger. A reminder that the boundary between here and out there is thinner than we think. If you have ever picked up a smooth stone at the edge of the ocean, you know the instinct. Your fingers close around it, and immediately you feel time. You feel waves polishing it, year after year, making it softer. You feel seasons moving over it. You feel the patient work of water and sand. A meteorite offers a similar feeling, but the scale stretches outward. Holding one is like holding a small piece of the solar system's early memory. It is a way of touching deep time with your fingertips, without having to travel anywhere at all. Some people go searching for meteorites after a bright fireball, walking fields at sunrise, scanning the ground carefully, not in a frantic way, but in a quiet, attentive way. They move slowly, they look closely, they listen to the hush of morning and the birds waking up. Even the search can feel like meditation, because it requires patience and presence. One morning, not long after that night on the hill, I met someone who understood this quiet kind of searching. He was an older man who lived at the edge of town, in a small house with a porch that faced open land. His porch light was always warm, never harsh, as if he wanted the night to feel welcome. When you spoke with him, he answered slowly, as if he had learned that nothing truly important is improved by rushing. On a shelf by his window, he kept a simple wooden box. Inside were mostly ordinary stones, smooth pebbles from rivers, a pale chip of quartz, a flat piece of shale like layered pages, but among them were two darker stones, each about the size of a walnut, each with a quiet, matte skin. He didn't call them treasures. He called them reminders. He told me he found the first one after a meteor shower, not because he tracked it with instruments, but because he woke early, walked his usual path, and noticed something slightly different in the dirt. It wasn't shining, he said. It wasn't trying to be found. It was just there. He washed it gently, then held it in his palm for a long time. I was going through a hard season, he admitted, and his voice lowered, as if he didn't want to disturb the air. Grief makes time feel sharp. This made time feel round again. That phrase stayed with me, because stress can make the hours feel narrow, like a hallway with no windows. But when you hold a story larger than the moment you're in, something inside you begins to soften. The breath returns. The edges become smoother. He said he sometimes took the stone out at night, when sleep wouldn't come easily. He would sit by the window, in a dim room, and place it on his palm as if it were a small animal that needed warmth. He would remember only this: the universe is old, and it carries things gently, and even the fastest streak of light ends in rest. Then he would put the stone back, turn off the lamp, and let his body do the same. If you're listening right now and your mind feels busy, you can borrow his ritual without owning anything at all. Make a small box in your imagination. Place inside it one steady image, a smooth stone, a quiet field, a thin streak of light. When thoughts begin to race, open the box and touch the image again, not to solve anything, but to remember softness. That is what meteorites can teach us, too. After a bright moment, they become an anchor of quiet, a proof that the sky's surprises can end in gentleness. And when a meteorite is found, it is often described in simple, humble terms. A dark stone, a slightly heavier stone than expected. A stone with a thin, blackened skin, as if it has been gently toasted. Sometimes, the surface is smooth and rounded from melting in the upper air, shaped by heat and motion into soft contours. Sometimes, there are shallow, thumbprint-like dimples, little hollows made by turbulent airflow during its bright passage. They are not dramatic scars. They are subtle textures, like the surface of a river stone. The inside, if it is ever revealed, can be different. A quieter color, a speckled pattern, tiny mineral grains arranged in a way that hints at long history. But you do not need to open the stone tonight. It is enough to imagine it closed, holding its story privately, the way you hold your own memories. Because that is the soft truth of meteorites. They are not only rocks, they are containers. They carry traces of the early solar system, and sometimes grains older than the sun, folded into their structure like a photograph kept in a wallet. Their value is not in shine, their value is in perspective. And perspective is one of the kindest medicines for a tired mind. When you feel overwhelmed, it can help to remember that your life is part of a much larger circulation. The same atoms that make your body have traveled through stars. The same gravity that keeps the moon near Earth also guides tiny stones through the dark. The same atmosphere that helps you breathe also turns fast, cold rock into harmless light. Everything is connected, and the connections are gentle. If you are listening tonight from a busy place, perhaps you can let that connection soften you. Let the idea of a meteorite resting somewhere in a field remind you that the universe is not only vast, but also tender. It delivers its ancient pieces quietly. It doesn't slam them down, it places them. And humans, when they find them, often respond with quiet awe rather than loud triumph. Many people simply hold the stone in their palm for a while, feeling its cool weight, letting their thoughts grow calm. If you want, you can do that too, without a stone. Imagine a small, smooth object in your hand, cool and steady, like a worry stone. Imagine it holding a story older than your worries. Imagine your nervous system recognizing that age and relaxing in response, the way it relaxes when you stand beside an ocean and feel how old the waves are. Now, there is another gentle twist here, one that is easy to miss. Most of the universe arrives in smallness. We tend to think of space as filled with grand things, planets, stars, glowing nebulae. But much of it is dust, tiny fragments, quiet travelers. And much of what reaches Earth does so in that same humble form. Microscopic particles settling into snow, drifting into water, joining the ordinary world. Even when something arrives as a meteorite, it is rarely large. Often, it can fit in your hand. Sometimes, it is no bigger than a pebble, and still, it can carry a history that stretches back billions of years. So the lesson is not that you must become bigger. The lesson is that small things can hold great meaning. A short moment can hold a long story. A quiet night can hold a deep healing. A single breath can change the texture of your mind. If this story has brought you calm, leave a gentle comment for yourself, not for anyone else, just for you. A small note that says, I was here, I listened, I softened, and as you lie there, let your own body become like that meteorite, at last cooling, settling, arriving. Let your thoughts complete their bright passage, and then enter dark flight. Let them fall without light. Let them drift down into stillness. You don't need to chase them. You don't need to catch them. You only need to let the atmosphere of sleep do its work, turning motion into quiet and quiet into rest. In the next part, we will return to the sky one more time, not to speed up, but to slow down even further. We will follow the faint trails that linger after meteors fade, the delicate patterns of high winds, and the way the night can keep a memory in the form of pale, glowing clouds. We will let those images loosen the last tight places in the mind. For now, imagine the field again, moonlight on grass, a small stone resting, the earth turning, the sky wide above, calm and patient. Night holds you, and you, safe beneath it, allowed to sleep. After the bright line has vanished, the sky does not always forget. Sometimes it keeps a faint memory, like the soft afterimage you see when you close your eyes after looking at a lamp. Not sharp, not demanding, just a whisper that lingers a little longer than you expected. If you've ever watched a meteor and then kept staring at the place where it was, hoping for one more second of light, you already know this feeling. The night has a gentle way of leaving traces. High above the sleeping world, the upper atmosphere is not still. It moves in wide, slow currents, like deep water in an ocean. The winds there don't rustle leaves or rattle windows. They glide through thin air where sound is scarce, carrying tiny particles along invisible paths. When a meteoroid passes and the air briefly glows, it can leave behind a delicate trail, atoms and molecules, disturbed, ionized, warmed, and then slowly returning to quiet. From the ground, that trail can look like a pale thread, almost like someone drew a line with chalk and then began to smudge it with a fingertip. It may bend gently, twist, fray at the edges, and thin into nothing. Watching it is like watching smoke dissolve, except it is happening at the top of the world, and the smoke is made of air itself, remembering a touch. If you're lying down tonight, you can let this image do something kind for you, because so many thoughts behave the same way. A worry flashes bright, sudden, convincing. Then it fades, yet the mind keeps staring at the place it was, replaying it, tracing it, trying to hold it. It's natural, it's human. The nervous system is built to remember, to scan, to rehearse. But the sky offers a different lesson. After a bright event, the trail is allowed to soften. It is allowed to drift. It is allowed to break apart and become the background again. So, if a thought has flashed through you today, an awkward moment, a hard email, a quiet fear, imagine it as that thin trail. Not a problem you must solve right now. Just a line that can drift, just a trace that can dissolve. Take a slow breath in, and as you breathe out, picture the trail loosening, thinning, letting the wind carry it away. And if you need something to do with your hands, let them rest open for a moment. Palms relaxed, fingers slightly curled, as if you are allowing the night to place calm into them. There is a softness in knowing that the atmosphere is always working, quietly turning sharp motion into gentle light, and gentle light into quiet air. It does not panic, it does not cling, it does not demand. It simply returns to its own steady state, again and again, the way your body returns to its resting rhythm when you stop feeding it urgency. On some nights, the memory of meteors becomes something even more delicate. Long after sunset, when the world below is dark, the upper atmosphere can still catch sunlight. In those high, cold layers, very thin clouds can form so high they are lit from above, while the ground is already in shadow. When they appear, they look like silver lace, like soft ripples of pale light, like the ocean lifted into the sky and frozen into gentle patterns. They are called noctilucent clouds, and they often look unreal, like a dream that drifted into the evening by mistake. If you have ever seen them, you might remember how they do not feel like weather. They feel like memory. And there is a quiet connection here. Tiny particles help these clouds form, giving water vapor something to gather around, something to cling to gently, something to crystallize upon. Some of those particles can be dust from space, the same quiet dust that arrives every day without anyone noticing. So imagine the full transformation. A speck drifting in darkness, a brief streak of light, a trail that twists and fades. And then, later, a delicate cloud, pale, luminous, lingering, the night turning a moment into a soft pattern. It's a reassuring kind of alchemy, and it can be a balm for the mind that fears impermanence. It suggests that nothing truly disappears. It changes form. A moment becomes a memory. A memory becomes a feeling. A feeling becomes part of who you are, held gently, not as a burden, but as texture. If tonight feels like one of those nights when you need that reassurance, let yourself lean into it. You do not have to hold your life in your hands with a tight grip. You can let it be held by time, by breath, by the wide patience of the world. When was the last time you allowed something to be unfinished? Not abandoned, just unfinished, resting for the night. A reply you can send tomorrow, a decision you can make later, a worry you can place down like a coat at the door. If you can't remember, that's okay. Tonight can be practice. Imagine your mind as a night sky. Thoughts are small meteors, arriving, shining briefly, passing through. Some are bright, some are faint, but none of them need to become a storm. None of them need to keep you awake. They are simply movement, and movement can be softened. There is a gentle truth that people sometimes miss. You don't have to chase wonder for it to reach you. A meteor is not impressed by your effort. It does not reward your anxiety. It passes whether you look or not. And yet, when you do look, you receive something, an image that makes the heart feel wider and quieter at the same time. Your rest can be like that too. Sleep is not something you force. It is something you allow. You create the conditions: dim light, a softer breath, a slower mind, and then you let the body do what it has always known how to do. You let it settle. You let it descend. You let it return to its natural pace. If you'd like, we can take one more slow breath together. Breathe in gently, as if drawing in cool night air. Hold for just a heartbeat. Not tight, just present. And breathe out longer, as if releasing a thin trail into the wind. Again, in, calm and quiet. Out, longer, softer. Now, imagine the meteor trail again, but this time, imagine it as a ribbon of thought that is loosening. Imagine the ribbon fraying into threads. Imagine the threads becoming mist. Imagine the mist becoming clear air. That is how sleep arrives, not as a sudden switch, but as a gradual clearing. And while the sky clears, it also protects. Remember the atmosphere again as a blanket, soft, thick enough to keep you safe, gentle enough to let beauty through. It turns harsh encounters into light. It turns impact into glow. It turns noise into distance. It does the same for you in a way, because your body has its own atmosphere. The nervous system that filters, softens, and restores. Tonight, you are letting it do its job. Here, no one rests alone. Every story is a soft lantern in the dark. If you're listening from a place where the night sky is hard to see, maybe the city is bright, maybe your window faces a wall, let the sky exist in your imagination. The brain responds to images the way it responds to experience. A quiet scene can still calm you, even if it is only inside. You can borrow a hilltop, a beach, a field, a wide open night, and let it hold you like a gentle room. And if tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. A night drive, a camping trip, a porch swing, a childhood moment when the stars felt close. Your memory can become another lantern for someone else, another soft light in this shared quiet space. There is a practice some stargazers share. They do not chase the sky with urgency. They do not treat the night like a checklist. They simply step outside, even for a minute, and let their eyes adjust to darkness. They listen for the ordinary sounds first, the far-off hum of a road, the soft tick of a cooling house, the hush of a tree settling into stillness. only then do they look up. And when a meteor appears, they do not grab for a phone. They do not scramble for proof. They let the moment be enough. Sometimes they carry a notebook, and later, under a warm lamp, they write one line. Not data, not numbers, just feeling. Thin and silver, like a seam in velvet, made me exhale. That kind of writing is not about recording the sky. It is about recording the nervous system returning to safety. If you've had a day that asked too much of you, you can borrow this practice without leaving your bed. Choose one sentence that describes your own returning. Something as simple as, "I am allowed to slow down," or "Tonight, I don't have to solve anything." If this story brought you calm, leave a gentle comment for yourself. A small note you might reread later, on another night, when sleep feels far away. And if you want a final image to carry into the edge of sleep, let it be this: a dark ocean. The water moves in long, slow breaths, catching moonlight the way silk catches a dim lamp. Above it, the Milky Way is a pale river of starlight. A single meteor passes, and its reflection trembles very softly on the water, as if the sea blinked. Then the reflection is gone, and the ocean continues. Your breath can match that ocean now. In, like a wave gathering. Out, like a wave releasing. And as the wave releases, let your thoughts release too, one by one, until what remains is only the dark, gentle surface of the night, and the soft certainty that you are safe. Now, let the lingering trail fade completely. Let the sky become simple again. Dark velvet, scattered stars, slow clouds, a calm moon. Let the last brightness dissolve into the vastness, and let your thoughts do the same. In the next part, we will return to the beginning of the circle dust, to light to dust, until the story feels like a gentle loop, and your mind can finally stop reaching forward. We'll let the night close around you like a kind hand, and we'll guide you toward the deepest, easiest kind of rest. For now, you can simply drift. The trail has done its work. The sky is quiet again, and you are safe to sleep. There is a certain comfort in circles. A circle does not rush toward a finish line. It does not demand that you prove anything. It simply returns, again and again, to what is steady. The seasons do this. The tides do this. Your breath does this. And tonight, our small traveler from space does this too, in its own gentle way. Dust in darkness, light in the air, dust settling again, quiet returning. If you let that sequence repeat softly in your mind, it can become a lullaby. Not a song you have to remember, but a rhythm your body can recognize. Because your nervous system relaxes when it senses a safe pattern. It relaxes when it knows what comes next. And what comes next, always, is calm. Imagine the meteoroid again, not as an event, but as a tiny loop through time. It drifts for ages, unseen and unhurried, in the cold space between worlds. Then, for a brief instant, it touches the Earth's atmosphere, and the air turns luminous, like a lantern lit from within. Then, just as quickly, the light fades. The fragment dissolves into dust, or cools into a small stone, or scatters into particles that the wind carries onward. And the sky becomes dark again, as if nothing happened. But something did happen. The universe touched your world, and your world welcomed it gently. That welcome is what I want you to feel tonight. Because many of us move through our days without feeling welcomed. We move through schedules, through crowded roads, through conversations that require performance. We carry our thoughts like heavy bags, and sometimes we forget that we belong anywhere at all. The sky offers a different kind of belonging. It does not ask you to be impressive. It does not ask you to be productive. It simply allows you to exist under it. And that allowance can be enough to soften the mind. If your thoughts are still awake, you can give them one soft focus, the atmosphere as a blanket. Not a rigid shield, but a warm layer, a thin, faithful veil that has protected life for as long as life has existed here. It turns sharp motion into light. It turns impact into glow. It turns danger into a harmless story told far above your roof. And that means, in a quiet way, that you are already being cared for. You don't have to earn it. You don't have to prove you deserve it. You are simply alive inside a system that is built for gentleness. Even the word atmosphere sounds like something you can breathe into, like a room that holds you. So let's make tonight's circle personal. Think of your own day as a meteoroid's passage. Maybe there were moments that felt fast and bright, moments where you had to respond quickly, speak clearly, stay steady, keep moving. Maybe there were moments that felt hot inside your chest, like compressed air, like pressure. Maybe there were even moments that flashed with emotion and then vanished, leaving you tired. Now, imagine those moments entering the atmosphere of your evening. Imagine the night receiving them. Imagine them being softened, broken down, cooled, and transformed into something gentler. In other words, let the night do for you what the air does for the stone. Let it take what moved too fast and turn it into light, then into quiet. If you want, you can follow a simple breath pattern while you imagine it. Breathe in for a slow count of 4. Hold for just 1 beat. Breathe out for a slow count of 6. Let the exhale be your return. Again, in 2, 3, 4. Hold. Just a soft pause. Out. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As you do this, notice how the circle completes itself. The inhale gathers, the exhale releases. The pause is the sky between stars. And the circle repeats, steady, kind. There is a gentle kind of wisdom in repeating things without forcing them. You don't have to solve your whole life tonight. You don't have to fix every thought. You only have to repeat one safe pattern until your body believes it. A meteor shower teaches this too. Long darkness, a brief streak, then darkness again. The sky doesn't hurry to deliver the next flash. It waits, it rests, it lets the intervals be part of the beauty. What if your mind could do the same? What if, between thoughts, you let there be space? Not empty space, but restful space, like a quiet room with dim light. A place where nothing needs to be decided. A place where you can simply exist. If you've been carrying worry, you might notice how it tries to fill every gap. It tries to keep you occupied, as if attention is a task you must complete. But the night suggests another approach. It suggests you can let the gaps be gentle. You can let silence do some of the work. In that old tin box on the hill, beneath the star chart, there was another note, written smaller than the rest. I didn't mention it earlier because it felt like a private message, the kind someone writes for themselves when they want to remember something true. The note said, "The sky doesn't chase you, it waits." It's such a simple thought, and yet it can be life-changing, because so much of modern life feels like being chased. Deadlines chase you, notifications chase you, expectations chase you. Even the mind can chase you with its own demands. But the sky waits. It waits for you to look up. It waits for you to slow down. It waits for your breathing to find its natural length again. And if you never look up, it still waits, patient and wide, like a quiet friend who doesn't take your absence personally. Tonight, you are looking up in your imagination, and that is enough. You are allowing the sky to be near you, and you are allowing yourself to be near it. When was the last time you let yourself be held by something larger than your thoughts? You don't have to answer. You can simply feel the question settle. Questions at night don't have to be solved. They can be placed gently on the bedside table of the mind and left there until morning. Now, let's return to the smallest part of the story again. Because smallness is soothing. Imagine a grain of dust, smaller than a grain of sand. It drifts through space, without light, without sound, without hurry. It doesn't know it is important. It doesn't know it will become a streak. It simply moves. Then, briefly, it becomes visible, and the whole sky seems to react. Your eyes widen, your breath catches, your mind feels wonder, and then it is gone again. The wonder remains, but the stimulus fades. This is another gentle lesson. You can have wonder without holding on to it. You can let beauty pass through you, the way air passes through your lungs. You inhale it, you feel it, and you release it. You don't have to trap it. You don't have to replay it. You can let it do what it came to do, soften you. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. Maybe it's a memory of a night drive, a field, a rooftop, a beach. Maybe it's a memory of someone you used to sit beside, both of you quiet, both of you looking up. The details don't have to be dramatic. Small memories are often the most healing. And if you don't want to share, that's okay too. Your memory can be just for you, like a meteorite kept in a small wooden box, taken out only when you need perspective. Here, no one rests alone. Every story is a soft lantern in the dark. As we move toward the end of this part, let's make the circle even slower. Imagine the earth turning under the stars, not fast, not loud, just steadily, like a sleeping animal shifting its weight in a safe place. Imagine the atmosphere as a thin glow around the planet, a faint halo. Imagine tiny dust arriving every day, invisible, gentle. And imagine that, at this very moment, while you lie here, the universe is still doing this quiet exchange. Space and earth meeting softly. Dust becoming part of air, part of water, part of soil. The cosmos becoming ordinary, and the ordinary becoming sacred. There is gratitude in that thought, a soft kind of gratitude that doesn't require effort. You don't have to say anything. You can simply feel your heart loosen. If you'd like, you can imagine one more circle, closer to home. Think of the way a house settles at night. The pipes cool. The wood gives a quiet, harmless creak. The air in the room becomes still, then moves again with your breathing. Even outside, the neighborhood changes its rhythm. Fewer cars, fewer voices, more space between sounds. It's as if the world itself is practicing a slower pulse, inviting you to match it. And when you do match it, something subtle happens inside you. The mind stops gripping, the muscles stop bracing. Your attention becomes softer, wider, less focused on problems, and more aware of safety. That is not weakness. That is the body remembering its original skill, to restore. So if a thought returns an unfinished task, a conversation, a worry, treat it the way you would treat a distant meteor. Notice it, gently. Let it pass. Let the trail fade. You do not need to chase it across the whole sky of your mind. You can let it be one small streak in a vast darkness that remains calm. And perhaps just for tonight, you can offer yourself one quiet sentence, like a small blanket tucked around the heart. I did enough, or I can begin again tomorrow, or even right now, I am safe. Let the sentence settle. Let it become part of the circle too. The sky will turn its pages, and you may fall asleep between them. If you want a closing image for this part, let it be this: a dark room, a slow breath, a sky beyond the walls, wide and patient, a tiny streak of light far away, and then quiet. And you, returning to yourself, returning to rest, completing the circle. In the next part, we will let the circle close even more gently, guiding the mind toward that place where thoughts become like distant stars and sleep becomes inevitable, not forced, but welcomed. For now, you can stay inside the rhythm. Dust, light, dust, quiet. Again. By now, the sky in your mind may feel closer than it did at the start. Not closer in distance, but closer in familiarity. Like a room you've been in before, a room where your body knows it can loosen its guard. The stars are not strangers anymore. The darkness is not empty. It is spacious, and that spaciousness can hold you. Tonight, let's imagine that your bed is a small observatory. Not an observatory with cold metal domes and loud machinery, but an observatory made of softness, a pillow, a blanket, a dim lamp turned low, the steady hum of the world outside becoming distant. In this observatory, you don't have to search for facts. You only have to notice how the night feels. The best observatories are built far from city lights, where the sky looks deep enough to fall into. But the truest observatory is always the one inside you, the part of your mind that can watch without judging, the part that can listen without solving. So, for a moment, let your attention rise gently, as if it were lifting like fog. Notice the ceiling above you, or the darkness behind your closed eyelids. Notice the softness of your breath, the way it enters and leaves without needing permission. Notice the small sounds around you. A fan, a distant car, the quiet settling of a building. These are your earth sounds, and they can be comforting because they mean you are here, held by ordinary life. Now, above those sounds, imagine the upper air, thin and cold and calm, the place where meteors become light, the place where trails twist like faint ribbons, the place where delicate silver clouds can glow after sunset. When you picture that place, do you feel how your worries shrink just a little? Not because your worries are foolish, but because your mind remembers scale. It remembers that there are wide spaces where urgency cannot live. It remembers that not everything is a deadline. In that high air, there is a kind of quiet order. Winds move, yes, but they move in broad, patient sweeps. Particles drift, yes, but they drift like slow snow. Even when something arrives fast, like a small stone from space, the atmosphere receives it and softens it into light, then returns to stillness. The system does not panic. It does not cling. It does not fight what is passing through. What would it feel like to be like that? To let the mind become a gentle atmosphere. To let thoughts pass through, glow briefly, and dissolve. To let the quiet return without effort. If you want, you can practice with one thought right now. Choose a thought that is not too sharp, not too heavy. Maybe it's a small, unfinished thing, a message you haven't answered, a task you forgot, a detail you meant to remember. Hold it lightly, as if it were a tiny speck of dust in your palm. Now, in your imagination, let it rise into the high air. Let it meet the edge of your attention. Let it glow for a brief moment, just a recognition, nothing more. And then let it fade, the way a meteor fades. Watch the trail thin. Watch the air become clear again. This is not avoidance. It is timing. There are thoughts that belong to daytime, and there is rest that belongs to night. Your body knows the difference. Your body has always known. Sometimes, the most difficult part is trusting that you will remember what matters later. Anxiety often tells you that if you don't hold a thought tightly now, you will lose it forever. But the universe is full of returning paths. Meteors return as showers. Dust returns as clouds. The earth returns to the same season. And you, too, return to your tasks when morning comes. You don't have to carry everything across the bridge of the night. You can set it down. You can let the night hold nothing but your breath. And when you let yourself be this simple, you may notice something tender. You begin to feel your own life again, beneath all the noise. The quiet reveals you. On the hill, where the tin box waited under the bench, there was a view of the horizon that made the world feel wide. The older man who owned the wooden box of stones once told me that he liked horizons because they don't argue with you. They don't say, hurry. They don't say, prove it. They just lie there, steady, reminding you that distance exists, that patience exists, that your problems are not the whole landscape. Tonight, you can have a horizon too, even if you are in an apartment, even if you are in a bright city, even if the window shows only another building. Your horizon can be the line between your inhale and your exhale, the place where the breath turns, the place where effort becomes release. Breathe in slowly and breathe out longer. Let the exhale be your horizon. Let it open a small distance between you and your thoughts. Now, imagine one more meteor, very gentle, very faint, the kind that barely leaves a mark. It crosses your inner sky like a small stitch of light. You do not need to wish. You do not need to interpret. You only need to notice. Something moved, and now it is quiet again. This is the rhythm of safety. Safety is not a constant brightness. Safety is the return to calm after a moment of change. Safety is the body learning, again and again, that the quiet comes back. If tonight's story is giving you that feeling, let it settle deep. And if you want to share, you can tell us. Where are you listening from tonight? A city, a small town, a quiet room, a moving car parked at the curb. Your presence adds warmth to this quiet corner of the night. Here, no one rests alone. Every story is a soft lantern in the dark. Now, let's bring the lens closer, as if the observatory inside you is turning its attention from the wide sky to a single detail. Think of the smallest thing we've carried tonight, a grain older than the Sunday. You don't have to understand how it formed. You don't have to imagine the chemistry. Just imagine its patience. A speck drifting through ages. A speck surviving heat and cold, gathering into stone, then returning as light, then settling again. Patience like that is not stubbornness. It is calm endurance. It's the kind of endurance you already have, even if you've forgotten. You have made it through seasons you once thought you couldn't. You have breathed through nights that felt too long. You have survived days that asked more than you wanted to give. And here you are now, listening, still here, still moving toward rest. That is quiet strength. Not loud strength, not dramatic strength. Strength like a steady orbit. Strength like a soft blanket. Strength like the atmosphere doing its work. If you feel tired, that does not mean you are weak. It means you are human. It means you have been carrying life, and now you are allowed to put life down for a while. In the language of the sky, you are allowed to enter dark flight, to descend without light, to fall gently into sleep, to land without impact, to rest So let your eyelids become heavier. Let your face soften. Let your shoulders sink. Let your hands be still. If a thought returns, treat it kindly. Let it be a faint meteor in the distance. Notice it and let it pass. If a feeling returns, treat it kindly too. Let it be a cloud, pale and luminous, drifting through your inner sky. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to name it. You can let it move and let it thin. Everything is allowed to move on. Everything is allowed to settle. Sometimes, when you can't see many stars, you might think the sky is missing, but the stars are still there, above the glow, above the haze, above the thin veil of cloud. The universe does not switch off just because a city is bright. It keeps shining in its own quiet way, and the idea of that can be soothing. There is always more space than what you can see from where you are. If you ever feel boxed in by your life, remember that truth. There is always more space than what the moment shows you. And you can practice feeling that space with something very simple. The pause after an exhale. Let your breath out. And then, before the next inhale arrives, notice the small, natural silence. That silence is a doorway. It is the same kind of doorway the sky gives you between meteors, between clouds, between thoughts. It is not empty, it is restful. If you'd like, you can count 3 slow breaths now, not as a task, but as a gentle rocking. 1, in and out. 2, in and out. 3, in and out. If your mind tries to plan tomorrow, let it plan like starlight, distant, quiet, not urgent. You can tell it, softly, not now. And then return to the breath, the only schedule that matters tonight. Morning arrives anyway, gentle and on time. And after the 3rd exhale, let the counting fade away, the way a trail fades, leaving only the quiet. Because you don't have to keep doing anything to deserve sleep. Sleep is not a reward for effort. It is a return to what the body has always known. As we approach the end of this part, let's leave one last image on the mind, like a small lantern set beside your bed. Imagine the earth from far away, wrapped in a thin blue halo of air. Night covers one side, like velvet. On that dark side, countless people are sleeping, each in their own room, each with their own quiet story. Above them, meteors flash, now and then, unseen by most, harmless, tender, turning speed into light, turning light into quiet. And among all those sleeping rooms, yours is one. Your breath is one small tide. Your thoughts are one small sky. You belong to the same gentle system, so you can rest. In the next part, we'll let the observatory go dark and close, the way a dome closes for the night. We'll gather the story into the simplest possible loop, and we'll guide you down into the final softness, where words become distant and sleep becomes near. For now, stay with the halo of air. Stay with the steady turning. Stay with the quiet return. If your body is beginning to drift, that's perfect. If you're still awake, that's all right too. There is no right way to arrive at rest. Sleep comes the way the night comes, gradually, softly, and on its own timing. And the most important thing is not to force it, but to give it a gentle place to land. So tonight, let's make the story even simpler. Let's gather what we've carried: dust, light, trails, quiet stones, into one warm feeling, belonging. Because at the heart of this sky story is a kindness many people forget. You are not separate from the universe. You are not watching from the outside like a stranger. You are inside it, made of it, breathing with it. Even your loneliness, when it visits, does not mean you are cut off. It means you are human, sensitive enough to notice distance. And the night is one of the best medicines for distance, because it keeps reminding you, without words, that everything is connected by quiet rhythms. A meteor is a small visitor, yes, but it is also a relative returning, a grain of the same family of matter that shaped Earth, a piece of old time, arriving without noise. And when it arrives, the atmosphere does not fight it, it receives it, it transforms it, it turns it into beauty, and then it lets it go. That is what belonging looks like in nature. Not clinging, not chasing, but receiving and releasing in a steady circle. If you have spent the day holding yourself tightly, tight schedule, tight jaw, tight chest, this part of the story is for you. You are allowed to loosen. You are allowed to be received. You are allowed to be held by something larger than your own effort. Imagine, for a moment, that the night sky is not above you, but around you, like a wide, dark ocean. The stars are distant lights on the surface. Your bed is a small boat, safe, rocking gently. The air in the room is the water. Your breath is the rhythm of waves. And somewhere out there, far away, a tiny streak of light appears and then disappears, like a distant lighthouse blinking once. You do not need to steer toward it. You do not need to interpret it. You only need to feel what it means. The ocean is wide, and you are not alone on it. Here, no one rests alone. Every story is a soft lantern in the dark. If you have ever watched the sea at night, you may remember how it makes the mind quiet. The darkness is vast, but not threatening. It feels like a soft curtain. The water moves with an ancient patience, repeating itself without hurry. And if you stand there long enough, your thoughts begin to match it. You stop thinking in sharp edges. You start thinking in slow tides. The sky can do that too. So let's let the sky be a lantern tonight. Not a bright one, not a spotlight, just a warm, steady glow that helps you feel your way towards sleep. A lantern does not chase away all darkness. It simply makes the darkness feel safe. And in that safe darkness, you can finally stop trying to be awake. Now, there is a question we asked earlier, and we can ask it again, but softer, like a whisper that doesn't need an answer. When was the last time you looked up at the night sky and felt at peace? If a memory comes, let it arrive like a slow cloud. If no memory comes, let the question fade, because tonight itself can become the memory. Tonight can be your peaceful night sky. Tonight can be the moment you remember later, the way you remember a warm lamp in a cold season. And if tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below. Not to impress anyone, not to prove anything, just to place a soft lantern in the dark for yourself and others. Now, let's take the story's deepest comfort and bring it close to the heart. The atmosphere is a sign of care. A shooting star is not a sign that something is falling apart. It is a sign that the Earth's blanket is doing its job. It is the sky saying, in its own quiet language, you are protected. And if the sky can hold fast-moving stones without harm, then perhaps you can hold your own fast-moving thoughts the same way. Not with force, but with gentleness. Not by fighting them, but by letting them pass through the soft layers of your attention until they become light, then quiet. Think of a thought that has been bothering you lately. Not the heaviest one, just a persistent one. Hold it gently. Now imagine it entering the atmosphere of your mind. Imagine it glowing for a moment, recognized, acknowledged, and then imagine it thinning into a trail. The trail twists slightly. The wind carries it. It fades. And the sky of your mind is dark and calm again. This is a practice of belonging too, because belonging means you don't have to exile parts of yourself. You don't have to push away thoughts harshly. You can receive them, soften them, let them move on. You can become a place where things can pass safely. That is a powerful kind of peace. Not the peace of emptiness, but the peace of flow. And the more you practice that flow, the easier sleep becomes, because sleep is the ultimate flow. Thoughts moving into dreams, muscles releasing, awareness dissolving into rest. Sometimes people think they have to turn off their mind to sleep. But the mind doesn't turn off. It transforms. It shifts from one mode to another, from sharp daylight thinking to soft nighttime drifting. Tonight, you're helping it shift, slowly, kindly. Imagine, now, the small meteorite resting in a field. It has completed its bright passage. It has cooled. It has stopped moving. The field is quiet around it. Grass, soil, maybe snow. Above, the stars continue. The meteorite doesn't need to do anything now. It simply rests. You can rest like that too. You have completed your day's passage. You have moved through heat and pressure and light. Now you are allowed to cool. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to be still without guilt. If your body feels heavy, that's not a problem. That's the beginning of sleep. Let the heaviness be a kindness. Let your mattress carry you the way the earth carries the meteorite. Let your blanket be the atmosphere. Let your room be the field. And if you want one final soft discovery before we end the story, let it be this. Even the smallest dust can become light. Even the smallest moment can become beautiful. You don't need a grand life to have wonder. You only need a moment of attention and a safe place to breathe. The universe is not waiting for you to be perfect. It is simply moving quietly alongside you. And the night is one of the places where you can feel that alongsideness most clearly. If you feel alone tonight, let this be your reassurance. You are connected to countless sleepers under the same turning sky. You are connected to the old rhythms of the planet. You are connected to the dust that falls every day, invisible and gentle. You are connected to the long patience of time. You belong. And belonging is one of the softest pillows for the mind. If this story brought you calm, leave a gentle comment for yourself. And don't forget to subscribe for more peaceful nighttime journeys. Now, we are almost at the last part. The dome of our inner observatory is ready to close. We will let words become fewer. We will let images become simpler. We will guide you into the final quiet, where the story loops back to its beginning and then fades, like a meteor trail dissolving into the dark. For now, stay with the lantern feeling, a warm glow, a safe darkness, a quiet belonging, your breath, your bed, your night. Now we come to the gentlest part. Not a conclusion you have to remember, not a lesson you have to hold. Just a soft closing of the night, like a book being set down carefully, like a lamp dimming until the room becomes a quiet shade of dark. If you're still awake, you don't have to force yourself to sleep. If you're already drifting, you don't have to hold on to my words. You can let them fade, because tonight's story was never meant to be carried. It was meant to be felt and released. So let's return to the simplest loop one last time. A small piece of dust drifts through space. It is silent. It is patient. It does not glow. It does not hurry. Then, for a brief moment, it meets the edge of Earth's air. The atmosphere, your planet's soft blanket, receives it. The air compresses, warms, and shines. A thin line of light appears in the velvet dark. It glides. It fades. And the night becomes quiet again. Dust, light, dust, quiet. And you, listening, are part of that same rhythm. Your day was dust in motion. Thoughts, tasks, messages, effort. Then, perhaps, there were bright moments, decisions, conversations, small flashes of feeling. Now the light is fading. Now the motion is slowing. Now you are allowed to settle. If you want, take one slow breath in and breathe out longer. Let the exhale be the moment the meteor fades. Let it be the moment the sky becomes dark again. Let it be the moment your mind stops reaching. You don't have to think your way into sleep. You only have to stop resisting the quiet. Now, imagine a calm night ocean again. The water is dark, almost black, and it moves in slow, gentle breaths. The moonlight lies on the surface like a soft ribbon. Above, the stars are distant, steady, quiet points. A meteor crosses the sky, and for a second, its light is reflected on the water, a thin shimmer, trembling gently. Then the shimmer is gone. The ocean continues. Your breath can be that ocean now. In, like a wave gathering. Out, like a wave releasing. In, calm. Out, longer. Let the rhythm be simple. Let it be enough. If a thought appears, don't chase it. Don't argue with it. Treat it like a distant shooting star. Notice it. Let it pass. Let the trail fade. Return to the ocean of breath. If a feeling appears, treat it like a cloud. A pale, slow cloud moving across a quiet sky. You don't have to name it. You don't have to solve it. You can let it move on. Everything that comes can also go. That is the night's kindness. And now, let's soften the words even more. Let's make them like drifting particles, like dust in a lamplight beam, slow and weightless. You are safe. You are held. You are allowed to rest. The sky is doing its quiet work above you. The earth is turning gently beneath you. The atmosphere is wrapping the world in a soft halo of care. And somewhere, perhaps, cosmic dust is settling on snow, on rooftops, on oceans so quietly that no one hears it. A reminder that the universe can touch the world without disturbing it. A reminder that rest can arrive the same way, quietly, gently, without effort. If tonight's story reminded you of a beautiful memory, feel free to share it below when you're ready. And if you'd rather keep your memory to yourself, that's okay too. Some lanterns are meant to stay inside the heart. Here, no one rests alone. Every story is a soft lantern in the dark. Before we end, I'll leave you with one last small question, not to answer, only to let it drift down like a feather. What if, tonight, you didn't need to carry anything at all? What if you could set down your day the way a meteorite settles into a quiet field? What if you could cool and soften and become still? You can. You already are. So let the night close around you like a gentle hand. Let your breathing slow until you barely notice it. Let your thoughts become distant stars present, but far away, no longer demanding. Let the story become a faint trail, and then nothing. Just dark velvet, just calm, just sleep. If this story brought you calm, leave a gentle comment for yourself someday. And don't forget to subscribe for more peaceful nighttime journeys on Sleepy Insight channel. Good night.